betrayal always runs deeper than blood. Gina stood in her cramped apartment, the first rays of dawn filtering through dusty blinds, illuminating the clutter of her life. Juggling 3 jobs and caring for her younger brother, she bore the weight of her struggling family on her shoulders. Today was different, though. Today she learned that Jin-ho, her charming yet duplicitous ex-boyfriend, had stolen precious documents from her family's legacy, crucial files that could destroy everything her parents had built. Anger coursed through her veins, a burning desire to confront him setting her heart racing as she resolved to face Jin-ho at his opulent mansion, a fortress to keep his secrets safe. As she made her way, scavenging for information, the contrast between their lives loomed large. His world was filled with luxury, laughter, and privilege, while hers was defined by struggle and sacrifice. Every step towards Jin-ho's mansion only deepened her resolve, fueling her internal battle between anger and nostalgia. Memories flooded her, the nights spent laughing under the stars, the sweet promises he'd whispered, now tainted by betrayal. Gina could almost hear his voice, soft but laced with a darkness she failed to recognize back then. Upon arriving at the mansion, Gina was met with the sight of extravagance that made her stomach turn. Glistening lights illuminated the facade, a stark reminder of the emptiness behind those walls. Her heart raced as she crept around, only to spot Jin-ho through a window, chatting with a group of well-dressed friends, laughter echoing around them. Unbeknownst to him, Gina's heart echoed back in a mix of heartbreak and fury. In a moment of recklessness, she found a way inside, driven by a desperate need for closure. However, as she determinedly stalked the elegant halls, she made a mistake. One misstep sent her tumbling into a lavish pool, an unexpected plunge that mirrored the chaos within her heart. Emerging from the water, Gina was greeted not by Jin-ho, but by Seung-hyun, a powerful yet enigmatic CEO, owner of the mansion. His cold demeanor melted just a little upon seeing her soaked and shaken. "What on earth were you thinking?" he questioned, his voice exuding concern layered with bemusement. Gina, flustered and embarrassed but fiercely proud, recounted her plight, the stolen documents and the betrayal that left her determined to confront Jin-ho. Seung-hyun, struck by her tenacity, found himself drawn to the fire within her. Their conversation soon revealed shared struggles and dreams, a transformative connection blossoming amidst the turmoil.
Seung-hyun opened up about the family pressures that defined him, the expectations that weighed as heavily as Gina's burdens. Together, they hatched a plan to unearth the truth about Jin-ho, their shared goal igniting a budding bond. However, just as they closed in on Jin-ho's location, Gina received a harrowing message. Jin-ho threatened anyone who dared interfere. The revelation struck like a thunderbolt, amplifying Gina's determination but filling Seung-hyun with concern for her safety.
As the day of the confrontation dawned, Gina found herself wrestling with fear and hope. Fear of Jin-ho and hope for justice. Seung-hyun insisted on being by her side, igniting a spark that felt right, even as shadows from their past lingered. Together, they moved toward the gala where all would unfold, the thrill of anticipation tinged with anxiety. The climax erupted at the lavish event, as Gina, fueled by a fierce sense of justice, approached Jin-ho amidst shimmering lights and laughter. The world around them faded as she called him out, revealing his deceit in front of friends and family alike. Jin-ho's facade cracked, his charm replaced by a hint of desperation. Seung-hyun stood beside Gina, lending her strength as they faced Jin-ho together. In that moment, Gina felt the weight of her fears lift, the support anchoring her resolve to reclaim what was rightfully hers. As the evening wore on, the fallout from the confrontation left Gina victorious, but shaken. Seung-hyun enveloped her in a calm embrace, offering both comfort and an unspoken promise of support. They shared a quiet moment filled with unvoiced emotions, an acknowledgement that they had both changed and grown through this ordeal. The spark between them ignited an unexpected glimmer of love, built on trust and understanding. In the days that followed, Gina reclaimed her family's legacy, not just financially, but emotionally. The fear that once clouded her heart was lifted, and resilience began to replace her insecurities. Seung-hyun remained by her side, their relationship evolving into a partnership marked by shared dreams and mutual respect. As they stood hand in hand, watching the sun set on a new horizon, Gina knew there would be challenges ahead, but her heart was no longer alone in the journey. The future felt bright and filled with hope, a testament to the power of love, courage, and the strength to face one's fears. Sometimes, deception hides behind the prettiest facades. Determined to retrieve her family's secrets, Gina stood at the edge of Jin-ho's mansion under the cover of darkness, the opulence of the estate looming before her. Moonlight reflected off the crystals adorning the lavish structure, casting ethereal shadows that danced across her anxious features. In her mind, the ache of betrayal throbbed fiercely, driving her forward as she prepared to confront the man who had stolen so much. Her family's legacy, her peace, and her heart. With every cautious step, Gina's heart raced. The stakes were impossibly high. She was a girl from a modest background, fiercely protective of her family and desperate to reclaim what belonged to them. The insecurity of her life fueled her anger, but every breath seemed to whisper her doubts. Would she have the courage to face Jin-ho? Or would her past with him cripple her resolve? While she navigated the manicured gardens, her determination solidified with each imagined reunion. The painful confrontation, the truth laid bare before her. As Gina stealthily approached the mansion, her plan seemed straightforward, yet her thoughts swirled with uncertainty. She recalled how Jin-ho once promised to support her dreams, only to betray her trust in the most damaging way. Clutching the makeshift device she had crafted to access their secure files, she slipped through a side door, filled with both trepidation and purpose. The interior was as luxurious as she expected, but the air felt tense, echoing her mounting anxiety. As she crept deeper into the mansion, she took a moment to gather herself, but the silence was broken by an unexpected sound. A low, inviting chuckle coming from the grand living room. Suddenly, she lost her footing on the polished tile, and before she could grab hold of anything, she slipped, tumbling straight into the mansion's luxurious pool. The shock of the cold water jolted her senses, and as she surfaced, spluttering, her heart was racing. Not only from her fall, but from an undeniable awareness that she was no longer alone. Hands grasped her shoulders firmly, yanking her to safety as she gasped, blinking the water from her eyes. It was Seung-hyun, the enigmatic CEO known for his icy demeanor and ruthless business practices, now standing in front of her in drenched clothes, a stark contrast to the elite image he often portrayed. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, eyebrows knitted, a mix of concern and surprise swirling in his piercing gaze. Gina felt a jolt at his unexpected voice, sending adrenaline coursing through her veins. After quickly composing herself, she realized this was an unforeseen turn of events, unlikely yet fortuitous. With a slight shiver, she explained her intent, detailing how Jin-ho had shattered her family's trust. Rather than call security, Seung-hyun paused, intrigued by her fervor and sincerity, leading him to toss aside his initial considerations of immobility to help her. As their conversation unfolded, Gina discovered that beneath Seung-hyun's intimidating exterior lay a man grappling with his own demons, family expectations, pressures from society, and a painful past that echoed in his unwavering ambition. They spent the following hours hatching a plan, sharing pieces of their histories against the backdrop of the flickering pool lights. Seung-hyun's aloof nature softened as Gina's tenacity shone through. In this unexpected alliance, their initial focus blurring into a complex web of attraction, understanding, and mutual support. Just when it seemed they were uniting their strengths, Gina received a devastating message from Jin-ho, a taunt that gnarled her gut and left her feeling exposed. "If you seek me out, don't expect everyone to turn a blind eye. Secrets are meant to be buried," it warned. Gina's determination wavered under its weight, threatening to crush the bond she had formed with Seung-hyun. But rather than turn away, she felt an even greater yearning to confront her fears, both of Jin-ho and her feelings for Seung-hyun. In a pivotal moment full of tension, Gina chose to confide in Seung-hyun about the depths of her insecurities and her fear of failure. "What if I can't? What if he's always one step ahead?" she confessed, her voice laced with vulnerability. Seung-hyun, stepping closer, spoke with an intensity that made her heart flutter. "You've come this far, Gina. You're stronger than you think. Let's face him together." The gravity of his words pushed her toward a realization. The strength to stand up for her family and herself was something she had always possessed. Determined to face the confrontation, they set their eyes on Jin-ho's upcoming gala, where they would finally reclaim what was stolen. The climax arrived at the gala, ripe with tension and premonition. In the midst of the lavish event, Gina stood with Seung-hyun at her side, a power duo brimming with resolve. The crowd buzzed with laughter and glinting jewels, but her focus sharpened on Jin-ho, who stood at the center of it all, a man cloaked in smugness and easy charm. As she walked toward him, her heart thudded loudly in her chest, every step resonating with years of pain and regret. When her eyes met his, the undeniable fire fueled her courage. All the hurt ignited a confrontation that spilled into a dramatic exchange, unraveling his carefully crafted persona. "You've betrayed everything I believed in, and I'm here to make sure you face the consequences," Gina voiced firmly, her voice unwavering as Jin-ho's smirk faltered. Their confrontation illuminated not just the betrayal, but the latent bitterness that had bound his selfish choices. As the dust settled from the confrontation, Gina stood amid the revelations, emotionally and physically exhausted, but resolute. Seung-hyun emerged as her steadfast ally, their connection deepening in the aftermath of bravery. In that moment of catharsis, encouraging glimpses of the future swirled between them. A world filled with pursuit and understanding, both ready to navigate the complexities they faced. As they left the gala side by side, Gina felt as if she had reclaimed more than just her family's secrets. She had rediscovered her worth and found an unexpected ally in Seung-hyun, setting forth into an unwritten future filled with both promise and challenge. Fate often finds you in the most unexpected of places. Seung-hyun, the aloof yet charismatic CEO of a successful company, was accustomed to evenings of solitude, surrounded by the silence of his sprawling mansion. Tonight, the opulence of his surroundings felt hollow. His thoughts drifted to the pressures of his life. A mounting sense of isolation grew, like shadows in the corners of his lavish home. The weight of expectations from his family and the relentless demands of corporate life obscured any spark of joy. But as he poured a glass of whiskey, a loud splash suddenly jolted him from his gloom. Rushing outside, the sight that greeted him was like a scene from a frantic dream, a girl struggling in the deep end of his pool. A pulse of urgency surged through Seung-hyun. He tore off his jacket and dove in without a second thought. The water enveloped him, and within moments, he reached Gina, pulling her to the surface. The cool night air mingled with the warmth of their unexpected connection, marking the pivotal moment that would alter the paths of both their lives. Gina spluttered, eyes wide and heart racing, caught between shock and gratitude as she found herself safe on the pool's edge. Disheveled and breathless, she met Seung-hyun's concerned gaze and realized that the intimidating corporate figure she had heard about was not the monster she imagined. "Why did you save me?" she asked, her voice shaking, uncertainty swirling within her. Seung-hyun, momentarily taken aback by her earnestness, managed a soft smile. "Because no one deserves to drown alone," he replied, revealing the warmth that lay beneath his polished exterior. As they exchanged words, Gina shared her burdens, the family secrets she was fighting to reclaim, and the emotional turmoil that had driven her to confront her ex-boyfriend, Jin-ho. Seung-hyun listened intently, a growing sense of resonance forming between them, a shared understanding of their respective struggles for identity and belonging. In Gina, he saw the reflection of his own vulnerabilities. And in Seung-hyun, she found an ally in her battle against the past. The seeds of a unique bond began to take root, flourishing in the tension that buzzed between them. Their connection deepened over the following days as Gina began helping Seung-hyun with a community project aimed at revitalizing local businesses. They spent late evenings working side by side, the close quarters igniting an undeniable chemistry.
Seung-hyun found himself drawn to Ji-na's tenacity. Her passion and resolve often reminded him of everything he had lost sight of in his pursuit of success. Similarly, Ji-na was fascinated by his kindness disguised beneath layers of corporate responsibility. Yet just as they began to embrace their growing bond, shadows from the past crept in. Jin-ho, desperate and vindictive after the revelation of his betrayal, threatened to expose Ji-na's efforts in reclaiming her family legacy unless she backed down. The stakes rose dramatically, forcing Ji-na to confront her fears head-on. With Jin-ho's warning echoing in her mind, she wrestled with feelings of inadequacy that clashed against her newfound resolve. The tension culminated one stormy evening when Seung-hyun found Ji-na alone at the community center, frustration and helplessness written all over her face. He approached her, concern evident in his voice. "You don't have to face this alone." Ji-na met his gaze, tears filing her eyes. "But how can I go against someone with so much power?" In that moment, Seung-hyun was faced with a crucial decision: to offer Ji-na his unwavering support and risk his own reputation, or to remain a distant observer, letting fear dictate his choices. Choosing vulnerability over power, he declared, "I'll stand by you. Together we can take him down." Ji-na's heart swelled with both fear and hope. In their union, she found the courage to fight for her family's legacy and confront the shadows of her past. As the climax approached, they teamed up to expose Jin-ho's deceit, working tirelessly to gather evidence against him, determined to put an end to his threats once and for all. The showdown came at a charity gala where Jin-ho planned to flaunt his victory over Ji-na. Seung-hyun and Ji-na faced him together, their hands intertwined as they revealed the truth to a shocked crowd, the weight of their journey unfolding in real time. The atmosphere crackled with electricity as they confronted the man who had stolen so much from them, both realizing that their inner strength had been fueled not just by revenge, but by the hope of building something new. In the aftermath of the confrontation, victory was bittersweet. Jin-ho's downfall lifted a heavy burden from Ji-na's shoulders, but she was left grappling with the emotional fallout of the entire experience. Seung-hyun stood by her side, his presence a reminder that healing was not a solitary endeavor. Surrounded by friends and those he had helped, he felt a sense of belonging he had long sought after. As they shared a quiet moment away from the chaos of the gala, Ji-na whispered her gratitude, her eyes sparkling with newfound confidence. "I couldn't have done it without you." Seung-hyun responded softly, "But it was you who fought for yourself. You taught me the value of connection amidst chaos." No longer burdened by the past, Ji-na felt the warmth of possibility unfurling before her. Their journey together symbolized growth, not just in the pursuit of love, but in self-discovery amid life's challenges. With the dawn of a new day, they stood together at the edge of the pool where it all began, the air filled with hope for what awaited them. While their futures remained uncertain, they had learned that true strength lies in facing their fears, uncovering the richness of connection, and embracing vulnerability. No longer alone, both were ready to navigate the vast oceans of life together, one day at a time. Sometimes, the coldest depths reveal the warmest truths. Sitting on the edge of Seung-hyun's poolside, Ji-na wrapped herself in a towel, her heart still racing from the shock of her unexpected plunge. The moonlight shimmered on the surface of the water, mirroring the turmoil in her mind. This evening had spiraled into an unanticipated turning point in her life, and she felt both vulnerable and determined. Across from her stood Seung-hyun, a figure who was as enigmatic as he was charismatic, his usually aloof demeanor softened by genuine concern. As forgettable as her encounter with Jin-ho had been painful, Ji-na now found herself sharing the story that had haunted her, how her trust had been shattered and her family's legacy stolen. "He was my everything once," Ji-na began, her voice trembling as she recounted how Jin-ho's charm had blinded her to the darkness beneath. "But when I discovered he'd taken the documents, it destroyed my family. It was like losing a part of myself." Seung-hyun listened intently, the gravity of her words sinking into him.
The fierceness in her gaze ignited a sense of admiration he had never known, an empathy he hadn't anticipated feeling. Moved by her determination, Seung-hyun felt a shift within himself. He had built a wall around his emotions, a defense against a world that often took more than it gave. Yet here was Gina, laying bare her heart with raw honesty, evoking a protective instinct in him. "I can help you," he offered, the sincerity in his tone laying a foundation for trust. "Together, we can track down Jin-ho and reclaim what's rightfully yours." The unexpected alliance not only surprised Gina, but also sparked a flicker of hope in her heart, stirring a possibility she thought had been extinguished by betrayal. As they began their planning, the nights were filled with strategizing and laughter, each shared moment breaking down the barriers that once isolated them. Gina brought a fierce intensity, her eyes gleaming with conviction, while Seung-hyun discovered a playful side to himself in her presence. They visited the local markets, and while sampling street food, Gina shared stories of her life growing up, the hardships that shaped her into who she was. In return, Seung-hyun shared his struggles with familial expectations, revealing the loneliness that hid beneath his polished CEO exterior. The vulnerability they exchanged deepened their bond, a connection that transcended the circumstances that had brought them together. However, as their camaraderie grew, so did the complexities of their emotions. Gina found herself brushing against feelings that made her heart race. Was this just a fleeting distraction from her pain, or was it something more? Meanwhile, Seung-hyun battled against an unfamiliar warmth blossoming in his chest, a stark contrast to the emotionally detached life he had built. Just as they began to navigate this budding romance, the shadows of conflict loomed large in the form of Jin-ho's threats, who had caught wind of their plan and aimed to intimidate Gina into submission. The turning point arrived when Gina received a chilling phone call one evening. Jin-ho's voice, dripping with malice, echoed down the line. "You think you can replace me? You're playing a dangerous game, Gina." As the cold sweat trickled down her back, Gina felt her resolve waver. Overcome by fear, she paced the small room, her breathing quickening. Seung-hyun noticed her distress immediately and approached her with earnest eyes. "You won't face him alone. Together, we can show him that we won't be intimidated." In that moment, Gina took a deep breath and made a choice. "I won't back down. We've come too far." With Seung-hyun's unwavering support, she found her courage once more, igniting a fire within her that hungered for justice. They quickly devised a plan to confront Jin-ho publicly, illustrating that he couldn't hide behind his wealth and social status. With a mixture of adrenaline and fear coursing through her veins, Gina was ready to meet her nemesis, determined to reclaim her voice and her family's honor. The climax unfolded at a business event organized by Seung-hyun, attended by Jin-ho and all of Seoul's elite. The air crackled with anticipation as Gina took the stage, her heart pounding like a drum. Seung-hyun positioned himself behind her, a comforting presence bolstering her confidence. As she began to speak, her voice wavered but grew stronger with every word. "Today, I'm here not just for myself, but for every person whose trust has been broken." Gasps echoed through the audience, the tension palpable. In that heated moment, Gina exposed Jin-ho's deceit, recounting his betrayal and the impact it had on her family. As the crowd murmured in disbelief, Jin-ho's confident face fell, and he roared in indignation. Yet Gina stood unwavering, buoyed by Seung-hyun's steady gaze. After what felt like an eternity, the audience was shaken, and Jin-ho realized he no longer held power over her. With the truth laid bare, Gina reclaimed not only her family's legacy, but also her self-respect. As the dust settled, she turned to Seung-hyun, tears of relief welling in her eyes. "I couldn't have done this without you." Seung-hyun smiled softly, realizing in that moment that their connection had grown into something profound. As they stepped away from the chaos, they felt a tangible shift between them, one filled with newfound possibilities. Gina had faced her past and emerged stronger, while Seung-hyun had opened himself to vulnerability. They stood at the edge of the balcony overlooking the city, the lights twinkling like a sea of stars. "What now?" Gina asked, her heart pounding. Seung-hyun took a breath, leaning closer. Now, we pave our own paths. Whatever the future holds, let's face it together. The promise lingered between them, buoyed by the hope of a bond forged in resilience. While their journey was far from over, they embraced the uncertainty, knowing they would walk it side by side, having uncovered their strength through adversity and leaning on each other for support in the days to come. Sometimes, redemption comes wrapped in danger. As dawn broke over the city, Gina and Seung-hyun stood at the threshold of a new chapter, united in a mission to track down Jin-ho, her cunning ex-boyfriend. The stakes were high. Gina yearned for the truth and justice that had eluded her since the betrayal, while Seung-hyun sought to protect the fragile bond they had forged. Armed with determination and a flicker of hope, they ventured into the glamorous yet shadowy world where Jin-ho thrived, a world filled with glitzy events and perilous alliances. Their investigation began in the heart of Seoul, where luxury met secrecy. Guided by a lead, they entered an exclusive cocktail party at a lavish rooftop venue, a setting where ambition sparkled like the champagne they sipped. While Gina mingled, nervously scanning the crowd for any sign of Jin-ho, Seung-hyun kept a watchful eye, alert to the subtle tension lurking behind the facade of laughter and whispers. Their contrasting approaches marked the new dynamic in their relationship. Gina's courage combined with Seung-hyun's calculated strategy created an electric synergy that propelled their search. As the night unfolded, they encountered Jin-ho's enigmatic allies, wealthy socialites with a taste for danger and secrets. One particular encounter brought forth a shocking twist. During a seemingly innocuous conversation, Gina overheard a pair of guests discussing a mysterious shipment tied to Jin-ho slated to leave the country that very night. "He's making a run for it," she murmured, adrenaline rushing through her veins. Seung-hyun's expression turned serious. "We have to move fast." The urgency of their mission heightened. The walls around them felt as if they were closing in, each new revelation pushing them deeper into a game they were still learning to navigate. As they darted through the crowd, Gina's heart raced, both from excitement and fear. The glances exchanged, each one layered with intensity, filled her with both forceful bravery and growing trust in Seung-hyun. Their teamwork sparked something deeper. Not only did they complement one another, it became clear that Seung-hyun admired Gina's tenacity. "You've got guts, Gina," he said, respect infused in his tone as they ducked behind a pillar to avoid detection. "You'll catch him. I believe in you." Yet, danger ebbed closer. As they exited the venue, they spotted a familiar face struggling to blend in, an ally of Jin-ho, ready to report back. In an instant, fear surged through Gina as realization set in. They were being followed. The chase that ensued led them through narrow alleyways painted in the neon glow of the city, where paranoia and exhilaration blended into one electrifying cocktail of adrenaline. Seung-hyun stayed at Gina's side, pushing her to keep moving as they narrowly evaded capture. With every near miss, Gina's resolve hardened, her emotions driven by the fight for her family's honor. When they finally reached a secluded safe house, panting and wide-eyed, Gina collapsed on the couch, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "We can't stop now. Not when we're so close." Seung-hyun took a seat beside her, noticing the fire in her eyes. He had wanted to help her find closure, yet it was in moments like these that he discovered just how much he was falling for her. "You're right," he said, and in that small affirmation, Gina knew they were in this together, bound by a shared commitment to face whatever came next. Their next steps led them to Jin-ho's last known location, an upscale warehouse situated on the outskirts of town, buzzing with activity under the cover of darkness. As they approached, Gina couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding lacing her nerves. "What if he's ready for us?" she asked, doubt creeping in. "Then we'll find a way to outsmart him," Seung-hyun replied, his confidence reassuring her. They slipped through a side entrance, shadows enveloping them as the air thickened with tension. The climax hit when they unexpectedly stumbled upon Jin-ho in the warehouse, flanked by a group of intimidating associates. The confrontation unfolded swiftly. Words were exchanged, revealing Jin-ho's intentions to bury Gina's family legacy once and for all. You think you can just reclaim what I've taken? Jin-ho sneered, his arrogance palpable. The moment felt monumental, time stretching as Jina stepped forward, her voice steady, yet filled with conviction. You will answer for what you've done. As the words hung in the air, a surge of power coursed through her, and in that instance, she wasn't just fighting for herself anymore, she was fighting for her family, for what was right. Seung-hyun took her hand, lending his strength, and together they faced down Jin-ho and his supporters. The confrontation exploded into chaos as they outmaneuvered the group, igniting a fight that tested their limits. Emerging victorious from the fray, Ji-na and Seung-hyun pushed Jin-ho to a point of defeat, revealing his wrongdoing to the authorities they had summoned to the very location moments before the chaos ensued. With Jin-ho apprehended and his empire crumbling, a sense of victory washed over Ji-na, yet mixed with the weight of what they had endured. In the aftermath, they stood outside the warehouse, the pale dawn stretching before them as a new chapter awaited. We did it, Ji-na breathed, emotions swirling as she turned to Seung-hyun, realizing just how much her perception of him had shifted from the aloof CEO to a partner in every sense of the word. But at what cost? Seung-hyun murmured, glancing back at the scene they left behind, still processing the gravity of the events. That man took everything from you, but he didn't take your spirit. Ji-na smiled, understanding the kindness veiled behind his tone, knowing they had both grown from their experience. Together, they stepped forward into the light of a new day, breathless but resolute. Ji-na had regained control of her life, and in Seung-hyun, she discovered an unwavering ally. The promise of their journey was not without uncertainties, but as they walked side by side, hope illuminated their path, hinting that redemption and connections could flourish even in the aftermath of chaos. Trust is often the hardest thing to rebuild. As Ji-na and Seung-hyun pressed on in their quest to confront Jin-ho, the latest chapter of their journey unfolded amidst the mix of tension and unexpected warmth between them. Their partnership, founded on mutual respect and shared purpose, was complicated by contrasting personalities and the ghosts of their pasts. Located in Seung-hyun's office, with plans spread across the sleek mahogany desk, decisions swirled around them like leaves in the wind, as unresolved emotions simmered beneath the surface. Ji-na was fiercely determined, fueled by the betrayal that had reshaped her life. She thrived on instinct and raw passion, which often placed her at odds with Seung-hyun's methodical, reserved approach. "Why can't you just trust my instincts?" she snapped one afternoon, frustration bubbling over as he insisted on following a more cautious route. Seung-hyun, unfazed by her intensity, replied firmly, "Because uncalculated risks can lead to disastrous consequences, you need to think before you act." Their voices clashed, echoing off the polished walls of the office, and for a moment, heat hung heavy in the air. But just as quickly as their tempers flared, they were caught in an unexpected moment of intimacy. As Ji-na exhaled, her pent-up frustration melting away, she noticed the way Seung-hyun fixed her with a gaze that shone with understanding, an unspoken acknowledgement of their deeply rooted scars and struggles. The tension shifted, and their breaths mingled in the silence that followed. In that instant, Ji-na suppressed a smile, grappling with the budding feelings she had for him, feelings that threatened to blend with the minor rivalries they were navigating. Over the next few weeks, breaks in their heated disagreements often led to moments of vulnerability. On another evening, as they reviewed documents revealing Jin-ho's whereabouts, Ji-na caught sight of Seung-hyun rubbing the back of his neck, a telltale sign of tension. "You look worn out. Is it the pressure?" she asked softly. He paused, surprise flickering across his face, before he opened up about the weight of his family's expectations and the lonely nights clouded by self-doubt. Ji-na found herself leaning in, comforted by his fragility. "You're not alone in this," she assured him. Yet, escalations arose when Ji-na's insecurities bubbled to the surface. The internal conflict swelled within her when Seung-hyun, immersed in thoughts of strategy, inadvertently brushed aside her opinions. "You never listen to me," she snapped one night, feeling unworthy of his attention in moments when she craved affirmation. The words hit hard, a reflection of her hurt. Seung-hyun, taken aback, struggled to understand. "That's not true, Gina. I'm just trying to protect you." He reached out, trying to close the gap their argument had created, but Gina recoiled. Fuming, she stormed out, seeking the solitude of a nearby cafe where she could collect her thoughts. Sitting in the warmth of the coffee shop, the aroma wrapping around her like a second skin, Gina reflected on her emotions, her past with Jin-ho creeping back in like a shadow. Memories of deceit clouded her judgment and stirred anxiety. How could she fully trust Seung-hyun when she'd been blind so many times before? But that night, as she stared at the moonlight peeling through the window, Gina realized that avoiding her budding feelings for Seung-hyun would only hinder her healing. The conflict between her heart and her mind was palpable, but the shield that had long protected her packed promises of vulnerability and risk. With this revelation, Gina hurried back to his office, heart pounding with each step. Seung-hyun was still there, staring out the window with the city sprawling before him. "I'm sorry," Gina began, her voice taking on a hesitant timbre. "I shouldn't have reacted that way." His back remained turned for a moment, and just as self-doubt crept back, he spoke. "I'm sorry too. I want to support you. I just don't want you to get hurt." The sincerity in his tone melted Gina's defenses further. "You've caught me off guard," she confessed, stepping closer. "These feelings I have, I don't want to push you away." Seung-hyun turned, surprise evident on his face, and for the first time, the space between them felt charged with something more than unresolved conflict. "You won't," he whispered, their gazes locking in a moment that pulsed with unspoken promises and the weight of their shared burdens. It all came to a head as the day of their confrontation with Jin-ho arrived. Armed with the knowledge they'd unearthed together and emotional breakthroughs fueling their resolve, Gina and Seung-hyun set out to finalize their plans. But when they discovered that Jin-ho had anticipated their every move and had set a trap, tension ramped to its peak. The stakes were no longer just about legacy. They were about trust, healing, and the new connection they couldn't ignore any longer. In the face of adversity, Gina grasped Seung-hyun's hand tightly, her heart racing. "Whatever happens, we stand together," she asserted, voices steady. As uncertainty loomed over them, Gina felt the sincerity of their bond wrapping around her like a protective shield. It was more profound than the fears that had threatened to tear them apart. As their paths intertwined and they faced the man who had once left them shattered, Gina relished in the clarity of her growing feelings. Their journey had brought her strength and clarity as she embraced the vulnerability of falling for someone who understood her pain and supported her growth. In this life-altering moment, they would confront their pasts together, redefining themselves through shared courage. Together, forging a brighter future without losing sight of who they had been before. Fear has a way of revealing our true strength. As Gina and Seung-hyun immersed themselves in their pursuit of justice against Jin-ho, the air around them crackled with anticipation. They had spent countless hours piecing together clues, their partnership transitioning from mere allies to something intimate, riding on the hope that they were nearing a breakthrough. The sun dipped below the skyline, casting a warm glow over the city, but as they sat in Seung-hyun's office, excitement quickly gave way to trepidation. Just as Gina was recounting the latest developments in their search, Seung-hyun's phone buzzed sharply against the polished surface of his desk. A chill crept through the room as Seung-hyun's expression shifted from curious to dismayed. He unlocked his phone, revealing a message that drained the color from his face. "What is it?" Gina asked, her heart pounding as the gravity of the moment enveloped them. Seung-hyun hesitated, then showed her the screen. "It's Jin-ho. He's warning me to stay away from you." The weight of those words settled heavily in the air. Gina felt a shockwave of fear ripple through her as the implications of this threat unfurled. "He won't stop at threats. He'll try to get to us," she murmured, her protective instincts surging to the forefront. In that moment, the stakes shifted, from their quest for justice to the safety of both their lives. The tension between them thickened, echoing through every spoken word and shared glance. "I can handle this, Jina. I won't let him intimidate me," Seung-hyun insisted, attempting to mask his concern with bravado. But Jina saw through his facade. His brows knit in determination belied an undertow of fear for her safety. "This isn't just about you anymore," she countered, her voice now firm, reflecting both vulnerability and resolve. "Jin-ho knows how to use fear. I can't lose you too." The heated exchange ignited a flurry of internal conflicts, amplifying feelings that had already begun to simmer beneath the surface. Jina's fierce protectiveness collided with Seung-hyun's unwavering resolve, leading them into moments of intense argument mixed with quieter reflections of shared fears. Each confrontation crystallized their bond, the tension brimming with unacknowledged emotions that crackled beneath their exchanges. In the days that followed, they entered a world of heightened uncertainty. The closer they came to uncovering Jin-ho's plans, the more palpable the danger felt. Jina often caught Seung-hyun watching her when he thought she wouldn't notice, his gaze full of admiration, shadowed by worry. His steadfast presence added a new layer to the complexity of Jina's internal struggle, as she tried to navigate her growing feelings while grappling with lingering shadows from her past. The turning point arrived one evening when they were working late to analyze Jin-ho's financial records. Tension hung in the air as exhaustion seeped into their conversation. Jina pushed her frustration aside when a flurry of memories from her past with Jin-ho surged to the surface, darkening her thoughts. "What if I'm just putting us further at risk?" she voiced quietly, her voice carrying the weight of her self-doubt. Seung-hyun turned to her, eyes softening. "Your strength has brought us this far. You deserve to fight for what's yours." But that was the crux of her struggle. Could she embrace the future while still haunted by the ghost of Jin-ho? "You don't know what it's like to have someone you trusted turn on you. I can't let that happen again." The sorrow in her voice cut through him, and in the silence that followed, the air thickened with tension. "Then let me fight with you," Seung-hyun urged, stepping closer, the sincerity in his voice breaking through her defenses. "I believe in you. You're not alone in this." His words stirred something deep within her. Overcome with emotion, Jina felt the connection between them shift, an unspoken understanding flaring to life. This wasn't just about confronting Jin-ho, it was about confronting their own vulnerabilities together. But just as the tension between them began to dissolve into something tender, they were jolted by an unexpected turn of events. Early the next morning, as Jina and Seung-hyun entered a diner to strategize over coffee, a group of Jin-ho's associates stood up, purposefully blocking their exit. "You should have heeded his warning," one sneered, the malice palpable in his tone. Jina felt her heart drop. Here it was, the showdown they had both dreaded. Seung-hyun instinctively placed himself in front of Jina, a protective barrier, his cool facade slipping to reveal sheer determination. "Leave her out of this," he said, voice steady despite the threat looming before them. Jina's heart raced as she grasped the implications of their situation. The darkness that had always surrounded Jin-ho now inched closer, threatening to extinguish the light they had fought to reclaim. In that moment, narrowed perspectives of fear opened to searing clarity. Jina turned to Seung-hyun, meeting his eyes with a newfound resolve that brought something fierce alive within her. "We'll face this together," she assured him. The split-second decision not only tested their resolve, but crystallized their partnership into a unified front, forged from their pain, determination, and mutual support. The climax of their confrontation erupted into chaos. As Jina and Seung-hyun fought back against the unexpected assailants, each blow exchanged rippled through their unbreakable bond. The stakes were real, and together they broke through the seemingly insurmountable threat Jin-ho posed. In the aftermath of the fight, breathless and pulse-racing, Jina glanced at Seung-hyun, scrambling to process what had just happened. She began, her speech caught in the overwhelming emotions that threatened to spill over. Seung-hyun reached for her hand, eyes filled with a mixture of relief and something deeper. "We did this together. We're stronger than we think." Their encounter with Jin-ho's associates had raised the stakes immeasurably, forcing them to acknowledge the gravity of their situation and their feelings for each other. As they navigated the uncertain future, Jina and Seung-hyun realized that fear was a catalyst for their growth, uniquely binding them through the tumultuous journey ahead. With the shadows of doubt receding, they stood at the precipice of possibility. They were not just two people fighting against a common enemy. They were two souls fighting for hope, for love, and for a future of their own making. Love often walks a tightrope between desire and danger. In the wake of their recent confrontation with Jin-ho's men, Jina stood in Seung-hyun's office, the weight of the world hanging heavy on her shoulders. A dim light filtered through the windows, casting soft beams over the cluttered desk, where files piled high echoed their tumultuous journey. Jina was no stranger to risk, but now, as fear for Seung-hyun's safety gnawed at her, she found herself at a crossroads. Every instinct within her screamed to protect him, to push him away from the danger that Jin-ho and his associates posed. Their chemistry had deepened through shared adversity, each moment woven together by unspoken feelings and fierce loyalty. Yet as she looked at Seung-hyun, his confident stature and resolute gaze stirred a mix of admiration and apprehension. Could his powerful image shield him from the threats they faced? Fighting back tears, Jina took a determined breath, weighing her options. "Seung-hyun, we need to talk about this," she began, her voice softer than she intended. But before she could articulate the tumult in her heart, Seung-hyun's face shifted from focused expectation to worry. "What is it? You seem distant. I can't let Jin-ho get to you. You don't understand how dangerous this is," she replied, her emotions caught in a whirlwind that threatened to overtake her clarity. Their heated exchanges had built a foundation of trust, yet with every passing second, Jina felt an insurmountable instinct to protect him at all costs. "What if something happens to you because of me?" The tension in the room escalated. Seung-hyun stepped forward, looking deeply into Jina's eyes. "You're not responsible for Jin-ho's actions. We're in this together." But his earnestness only heightened her resolve, and in a moment of raw desperation, Jina took a step back, pushing him away both physically and emotionally. "No, you don't get it. You need to keep your distance. I won't lose you to this chaos." The words hung in the air like a thick fog as a pained expression crossed Seung-hyun's face. He opened his mouth to respond but instead stood there, vulnerability flashing in his eyes. This heartbreakingly tactical decision drove a wedge between them, the silence that followed amplifying the noise in Jina's head. She had made her choice, believing it was for the best, but as she turned away, heartbreak surged within her, a tumult of conflicting emotions she couldn't unravel. In the days that followed, Jina immersed herself in their investigation alone, shoving aside the gnawing emptiness left by the distance she'd created. Every piece of evidence she uncovered felt less significant without Seung-hyun at her side. She replayed the moments of intimacy they had shared, the shared laughs, the silent understanding between them. Each memory a bittersweet reminder of what she was trying to protect. Meanwhile, Seung-hyun grappled with the loss of their connection. Without Jina, his focus wavered, and his momentum toward confronting Jin-ho faltered. During their shared, quiet moments, he often found himself gazing at his phone, wishing she would initiate contact. He understood her desire to protect him, yet it hurt to feel shut out at a time when their strength might be their greatest asset. One evening, when Jina ventured into a coffee shop that held memories of their collaboration, she nearly burst into tears. Memories of Seung-hyun sitting across from her flooded her senses. His encouraging smile, the way his hair fell slightly over his forehead as he concentrated. Her heart ached, a visceral reminder that pushing him away only deepened her sense of loss and loneliness. Finally, a few days later, dissatisfaction brewed within Jina like a storm threatening to break. She could no longer deny that her love only intensified in Seung-hyun's absence. She recognized that the fear of losing him could not overshadow the need to face their challenges together. The decision crystallized. She had to confront him. Jina rushed to Seung-hyun's office, where she found him poring over documents with a furrowed brow. As she entered, the air felt choked with unspoken words. Seung-hyun lifted his gaze, surprise etching his features. "Jina, I'm sorry, she breathed, urgency gripping her heart. I've made a mistake. Seung-hyun's expression softened, but he hesitated, a flicker of hurt still evident in his eyes. You pushed me away. I thought you wanted me to be safe. I do, but I realize now that I was selfish. I can't face this without you. We're stronger together, and I need you by my side, she exclaimed, her voice thick with emotion. As their gazes locked, silence enveloped them, layered with the weight of their choices. Seung-hyun stepped closer, his tension dissipating, and the distance that had felt insurmountable slowly narrowed. I was afraid too, he admitted quietly. Afraid of getting hurt. Afraid of losing you. I won't let that happen, Gina cried, and instinctively she reached out and grasped his hand. The spark ignited again, each breathing moment reminding them of their purpose, their shared struggle. The climax of this newfound connection came as Gina and Seung-hyun prepared to confront Jin-ho together. They now understood the bond that had formed through the fires of conflict, the powerful partnership that would pave their way forward as they took on the challenges ahead. In the conclusion, as Gina and Seung-hyun stood united against their common enemy, the shadows of uncertainty remained, but the light of their connection shone brighter. No longer alone, they were ready to fight for their future together, transformed by the lessons of love, fear, and bravery that had led them to this very moment. The journey was far from over, but in their hearts lay a newfound hope, a promise of a shared life filled with courage, resilience, and love that could weather any storm. Sometimes, the hardest battles we face are the ones within ourselves. After a painful separation that had lingered between them like an unanswered question, Gina found herself standing alone at the edge of a serene lake, the moonlight reflecting off the water's surface. The tranquility of the setting contrasted sharply with the storm brewing inside her, a storm fueled by regret and longing for Seung-hyun, the man she had pushed away in fear of losing him to the dangers surrounding them. Days turned into weeks since their last encounter, and each moment apart only deepened her realization. Gina's heart ached with the weight of her choice, the burden of solitude amplifying her internal conflict. She replayed their last conversation 1,000 times, recalling the warmth of his presence and the connection they had forged amidst chaos. Yet, in her desire to protect him, she had deprived herself of his strength. A soft breeze stirred the air, carrying whispers of the love she tried to suppress, urging her to confront her feelings. Meanwhile, across the city, Seung-hyun sat in his apartment, looking out over the skyline. The absence of Gina left an echoing void, and each quiet evening without her intensified the yearning in his heart. He had reflected on their shared experiences, their battles fought side by side, and the undeniable chemistry that sparked between them, only to be extinguished by her sudden withdrawal. A mix of confusion and heartache enveloped him, making him question everything. Had he misread their bond? Was love truly worth the risk? One evening, recalling their final fleeting moments together, Seung-hyun felt a familiar warmth tethered to resolve. Standing by his window, he clenched his fists, reminding himself that pushing her away would never solve their problems. He wanted to believe in their connection, to embrace the vulnerability that came with it. I'll find a way to make her see we can do this together, he murmured to himself, a promise forged from the depths of longing. The twist of fate arrived the next day when Gina, gathering her determination, decided on a crucial visit, Seung-hyun's apartment. Heart-racing, she entered the building, the familiar scent of their shared moments flooding her senses. As she approached his door, memories swirled like cherished photographs. The fragile courage buoying her heart threatened to collapse, but she pressed on, knocking softly. Seung-hyun opened the door, surprise and a whirlwind of emotions filling his face. "Gina?" he breathed, taking a step back as if the distance between them had dissolved. Words hung suspended in the air, both grappling for an expression of their tumultuous feelings. I'm sorry," Gina finally managed, emotions spilling over her carefully constructed defenses. "Pushing you away was a mistake. I was scared. I should have trusted you." Seung-hyun's heart raced at her admission. The uncertainty that had gripped him since their separation pulled gently away, revealing the warm glow of hope. "I felt lost without you," he confessed, stepping closer, their unspoken bond resurfacing amidst the electric tension. "I didn't want to lose you, but I didn't want to let fear dictate our choices." In that shared moment, they embraced the weight of their heartache, their eyes locking in an unbreakable understanding. The emotional catharsis hung between them like a fragile promise, a testament to their willingness to fight for what they had. "Whatever happens next," Gina whispered, vulnerability giving way to strength, "we'll face it together." The climax unfolded as they drew on the unity born from their struggle, ready to confront the lingering shadows of Jin-ho. The next day, the air crackled with determination as they stepped forward as a united front. "We've faced danger before. We can do it again," Seung-hyun said, his seriousness anchored by a fierce desire to protect her this time, not just from Jin-ho, but from the fears that had kept them apart. As they pieced together their final strategy, Gina felt a weight lift, their connection deeper than merely survival. It was about trust, about honoring the bond they had cultivated through pain and vulnerability. Together they shared silent glances filled with promise and hopes for the future, creating an anticipation that pulsed with every beat of their hearts. In conclusion, Gina and Seung-hyun stood side by side, hand in hand, embodying the power of their journey. They had faced fear and self-doubt, but in choosing to confront their feelings, they forged a bond that shimmered with resilience and hope. As the sun set in brilliant hues above the horizon, they set forth together, ready to reclaim their future, knowing that love, though fraught with risk, was worth every battle they faced. The path ahead remained uncertain, but as long as they faced it together, they felt invincible. Confronting the past can illuminate the path to the future. The atmosphere crackled with tension as Gina adjusted her sleek black dress in the lavish courtyard of the gala, her heart racing in sync with the pounding bass of the music inside. The event was an extravagant showcase of wealth and influence, perfectly staged in a posh hotel adorned with gilded decorations. But for Gina and Seung-hyun, the grand setting served as a battleground where they would finally face their enemy, Jin-ho. Tonight would define not only Gina's journey to reclaim her family's stolen legacy, but also the emotional scars ingrained in her heart. As they entered the gala, the luminous atmosphere mingled uneasily with Gina's anxiety. Every clink of champagne glasses, every laugh echoed in her mind like a prelude to the confrontation she envisioned. Seung-hyun stood at her side, a steadfast presence against the daunting weight of their mission. His warmth offered solace, reminding her they were in this together. But Gina couldn't shake the doubts gnawing at her. What if facing Jin-ho opened old wounds that couldn't heal? As they navigated through the crowd, Gina noticed former acquaintances mingling, an array of familiar faces shifting against the backdrop of glistening chandeliers. Memories of her past fluttered forward, moments shared with Jin-ho, the closeness they had once experienced, now a stark contrast to her current dread. At that moment, Gina spotted him across the room, laughing with a group of elite guests, the very picture of disarming charm. Anger coursed through her. He hadn't changed, living without consequences, while she had fought tirelessly to reclaim what he had taken. "Stay focused," Seung-hyun murmured, sensing her distress. Gina nodded, steeling herself. As they approached Jin-ho, she felt the tension fuse, thickening the air surrounding them. "Gina, Seung-hyun, what a surprise to see you both here," Jin-ho greeted, the smirk on his face infuriatingly confident. "Enough games, Jin-ho," Gina replied, finding her voice despite the storm brewing inside. "We need to talk." By confronting him amidst the glamour and glitz, she attempted to keep the upper hand, forcing her fear into the background. The mood shifted as the conversation unfolded, revealing layers of deceit and manipulation Jin-ho had orchestrated. With each revelation, Gina's emotions surged, a cocktail of anger, betrayal, and resolve. "You think you can just take away my family's legacy and walk away without any consequences?" she accused, each word laced with the pain of her past. Jin-ho feigned innocence, his charm veiling a darkness that set her ire alight. This is just business, Gina. You were too naive to see the bigger picture. In that moment, as rage inspired her bravery, Gina stepped closer. You took more than documents. You took trust. You took my heart, she confronted, her voice unwavering. The weight of those words struck a chord deep within her, merging vulnerability with strength she never knew she possessed. Seung-hyun, watching her, felt a surge of pride. Gina was not only reclaiming her legacy, but also confronting her past. He admired her resilience as it unfurled before him, but he knew that Jin-ho was a cunning adversary, and the danger was far from over. Just as the moment reached a critical peak with their emotional confrontation, an unexpected twist emerged. One of Jin-ho's accomplices slipped into the scene, whispering something in his ear that caused a flicker of alarm to cross Jin-ho's face. Enough of this charade. I won't let you ruin everything I've worked for, Jin-ho warned, his demeanor shifting from playful to threatening. In that heartbeat, Gina felt a sudden rush of courage flowing through her veins, compelling her to declare, "You've lost everything that mattered. I'll make sure the truth comes out. Your time is up." The bravery in her voice served as a rallying cry, drawing strength from Seung-hyun's unwavering support. As tensions flared, Seung-hyun stepped forward, standing firmly beside Gina. "And we will expose you, Jin-ho. You won't undermine her any longer. We're united in our resolve." The solidarity between them radiated, a testament to their rising bond that only grew more profound with each challenge. In the fallout of the confrontation, Jin-ho retreated, his bravado faltering as he realized the tide had shifted against him. With his departure, Gina and Seung-hyun shared a moment, a charged silence of revelation, the air swirling with anticipation. They had faced the darkness together, defying not only a common enemy, but also the fears that had held them captive. In the heartfelt conclusion of their harrowing escapade, Gina exhaled, the weight of the evening drifting away like the stars emerging in the night sky outside. "We did it," she breathed, looking at Seung-hyun, who stood beside her, a resolute smile gracing his features. "For now," he replied softly, "but we still have much to fight for." Gina nodded, feeling empowered by their victory, but aware that this was only the beginning of their journey. Together, they faced uncertainties and the remnants of what Jin-ho had instilled in their lives. But one thing remained crystal clear. Strength lay in their bond, and with it, they would carve a way forward, united against whatever challenges lay ahead. As they exited the gala, hand in hand, Gina felt hope blossoming within her, allowing love and trust to unravel the threads of fear that had once bound her. A new chapter awaited them, and together, they would embrace it. Triumph is often found in the ashes of confrontation. The celebratory atmosphere of the gala felt surreal to Gina as she stepped away from the remnants of her confrontation with Jin-ho. The victorious adrenaline coursing through her was juxtaposed against the emotional weight of her family's legacy, now regained after weeks of turmoil and uncertainty. With every piece of evidence they uncovered, she felt empowered, the oppressive darkness of her past slowly giving way to the light of newfound strength. As fireworks erupted outside, casting vibrant colors across the sky, Gina found herself alone on the terrace, gazing out at the crowd below. Seung-hyun approached quietly, sensing her need for space yet eager to reconnect. "You faced him with such courage," he said, standing beside her as they watched the explosions of color light up the night. "I'm really proud of you." "Thank you," Gina replied, a hint of uncertainty lingering in her voice. "But I couldn't have done it without your support. You have always been there for me." She looked at him, remembering the moments they had shared, the laughter, the fears, and the intense moments that had altered the course of their lives. They stood in silence for a heartbeat, emotions swirling between them like the colors in the sky. But just as gratitude threatened to dissolve into deeper feelings, doubt shadowed Gina's heart. Could she trust her path forward after everything? What if failure loomed ahead? Seung-hyun turned towards her, noticing the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "Gina, I know this is a lot to process, but you've triumphed here. Don't forget how strong you are." His words ignited a resolve within her. reminding her of the resilience that had carried her through the storm. As the fireworks faded, Jina found the courage to voice the escalating emotions inside her. "Xianghyun, there's something I've been meaning to say." Her voice trembled slightly, but determination infused her spirit. "Through all of this, I've realized. Pushing you away was a mistake. I should have never let fear cloud what we share." A mix of surprise and hope flickered in Xianghyun's eyes, the unspoken feelings rising to the surface. "I felt lost without you," he confessed, his tone earnest. "When you pushed me away, it made me doubt everything I thought we had built together." In that moment, the lingering emotional scars began to blur, replaced by a shared vulnerability that infused the air around them. Jina stepped closer, reclaiming the warmth between them. "I've come to understand that love is worth every ounce of struggle. Together, we can face anything." Xianghyun's heart raced as he reached for her hands, intertwining their fingers. "I've loved you for a long time, Jina. I just didn't know how to say it when it mattered most." Their gaze held, raw and honest, a promise of trust and companionship solidifying their bond. Just then, the night erupted in joyous cheers as the final firework exploded in the sky, illuminating the world around them. In the brilliance of the moment, Jina and Xianghyun leaned in, their lips brushing softly against one another, a tender embrace that told them everything without needing to put it into words. They had faced darkness together and emerged, not only victorious, but unified. In the aftermath of their reunion, they knew their journey was far from over. The excitement of reclaiming Jina's family secrets would lead to the challenges of healing their past wounds and forging new paths as a couple. A sense of belonging swelled within Jina as she realized her fight wasn't just for her family, but also for a future she could now envision, one filled with love, trust, and endless possibilities alongside Xianghyun. In conclusion, their connection now stood resilient against the turbulent winds of their shared experiences. With their hearts laid bare, Jina and Xianghyun were ready to step into the future together, fortified by their triumph over adversity, assured in the knowledge that love could conquer fear when united. As they turned back to the gala hand in hand, they faced the night ahead, filled with hope, warmth, and a shared determination to embrace whatever life had in store for them. True strength is not the absence of fear, but the courage to rise above it. Jina stood in the heart of her family's ancestral home, basking in the soft glow of the morning sun that filtered through the ornate windows. The air was thick with expectation and renewed purpose as she prepared to officially reclaim her family's legacy, one that had been fraught with loss and betrayal, but now represented hope and resilience. At her side, Xianghyun's unwavering presence grounded her, a reminder that she would not face this journey alone. From the moment they had confronted Jin Ho, Jina had felt a shift within herself. The events that followed had uncovered not just the secrets of her family's past, but also nurtured a newfound confidence that urged her to take control. "This feels right," Jina murmured, glancing at Xianghyun, who stood with an encouraging smile, pride evident in his gaze. "I'm ready to dive in." As they pored over the documents that revealed the family's holdings and initiatives, Jina discovered new depths of her family's impact in the community. Each page turned rekindled memories of her childhood, intertwined with her parents' values. Yet lingering doubts festered at the edges of her mind. Could she truly honor their legacy while forging her own path? Xianghyun sensed her internal struggle, gently nudging her thoughts back to the present. "Remember, you have the strength to make this yours. You've already proven that," he said softly, instilling confidence as they discussed potential plans for revitalizing the family business. Just as they settled into a rhythm, a surprising twist emerged. Jina received a call from an old family friend, someone who had stood alongside her parents during their efforts to build the business. "Jina, I wanted to let you know that Jin Ho is still lurking around, trying to undermine everything your family has built," the voice warned, anxiety threading through the words. "He hasn't given up." The news tugged at Jina's chest, intertwining anxiety with the determination that had carried her this far. The internal conflict returned as fear lapped at her resolve. "What if he finds a way to sabotage us?" she asked, her voice wavering. Seung-hyun reached for her hand, the warmth of his touch reminding her of their shared strength. "Then we'll be ready for him. Together, we can outsmart him." The stakes heightened, building to a crucial moment when Gina gathered her courage to present her plans at a community meeting. As she stood before local business owners and potential investors, the pulsing energy of the room filled her with purpose. Her heart raced, the familiar flutter of nerves brewing in her stomach. She steeled herself, reciting facts about her family's legacy and her vision for its future. "Together, we have the power to create change. My parents believed in this community, and I intend to honor them by revitalizing our shared goals," Gina declared, her voice steady as she shared personal stories that revealed the deep-rooted connection she had with her family's history. Each word resonated, building an emotional connection with the audience that left her feeling empowered. However, as applause erupted around her, she caught a glimpse of Jin Ho lurking at the back, a menacing presence overshadowing her triumph. Her heart sank, but this time she didn't falter. She glanced at Seung-hyun, who stood in solidarity, ready to confront the looming darkness together. The climax unfolded with Jin Ho stepping forward, his facade of charm shifting to reveal calculated bitterness. "You think you can revive what I've taken? You have no idea what you're up against, Gina," he challenged. But instead of crumbling, Gina found strength in Seung-hyun's grip on her hand. "You've lost this battle, Jin Ho. No more manipulation," she declared, her voice stronger, cutting through the tension like a blade. The confrontation unfolded, Jin Ho's carefully constructed web of deceit unraveling under their combined efforts and unwavering support for one another. Seung-hyun and Gina ultimately presented undeniable evidence of his malfeasance, overwhelming the fears that once haunted her. Together, they emerged victorious, claiming not only protection for Gina's family legacy, but also sealing the strength of their bond. In the resolution that followed, together they stood at the threshold of a new beginning. Gina embraced her role in revitalizing the family business, stepping into a leadership position with Seung-hyun at her side, advocating for community involvement and sustainable growth. As they navigated their shared future, their relationship blossomed into a beautiful partnership, a tapestry woven from trust, love, and shared dreams. Over time, the emotional turbulence they had faced gave way to a stronger, more authentic connection. They celebrated each victory, supported one another through setbacks, and relished in quiet moments where their laughter intertwined. Together, they symbolized resilience and the transformative power of love, nurturing each other's growth. As they walked hand in hand through the familiar streets of their hometown, Gina felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. Not only had she reclaimed her family's legacy, but she had also discovered the depths of her own courage. Beside her, Seung-hyun wore a smile of pride, a testament to their journey. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together," he promised, and Gina nodded, confident in their united front as they stepped into the future, ready to write the next chapter of their lives. The complexities of life would bring challenges, but amidst it all, they had forged an unbreakable bond, one filled with hope, love, and unwavering determination. Sign up now for more stories full of breathtaking moments, emotional confessions, and the power of love that conquers everything.